A gute Woche. In honor of the second day of Shavuos, we start a new sefer in the Rambam, shifting the laws of the Sanhedrin. So the Rambam, in the beginning of the Mitzvah Sanhedrin of shifting, the Rambam says, Lemanei shifting, that the mitzvah is to have shoftim, to have judges. There's a big shaklavataria. Why does the Rambam only say lemanei shoftim? Why isn't the mitzvah of shoitrim also a separate mitzvah? There's the shoroshim in the Rambam. The Rambam writes in great detail what's a separate mitzvah, what makes it two mitzvahs. And one of the criteria are that one part is not ma'akiv the other part. So then you say if it's not ma'akiv, then it's two separate mitzvahs. The four tzitzis, if you're missing one tzitzit, it's nothing. So it's a raya that all four tzitzis are one mitzvah. So there's a big shaila in the Rambam. How about cheles and lovon? Why is it not two mitzvahs? We know the Mishnah says in Menoches, einat cheles ma'akiv es lovon, but the lovon is ma'akiv es at cheles. They're not ma'akiv each other. If they're not ma'akiv each other, there's the shaila, why are they one mitzvah? There should be two separate mitzvahs. So the answer which is given by the Cheles and Lovon, that Rambam says in Sheidish Yud Aleph, the 11th Sheidish of Sefer HaMitzvahs, that in Yonam Echadhu, it's one thing, it's the same idea of wearing tzitzis, even though this is Cheles, this is Lovon, it's one mitzvah. There's a beautiful shaklavataria by the Rambam. Why are tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh two mitzvahs? If in Yonam Echadhu should be one mitzvah. The Rebbe explains that there's miyusid on the beautiful chiddush of the Rabbi that by tefillin shel yad the mitzvah is the tying, ukshartom. Mitzvah shel rosh is the etzem fact that it's on your head. And by tefillin shel yad you have a mitzvah just in the beginning, but by tefillin shel rosh you have a mitzvah every minute. So since you have a mitzvah every minute, it's a different gedera mitzvah. This is kshida and this is sheyehei munach. So based on that, we can understand, and it's mashma and Lashon Rambam, beautiful chiddush the Rogachover, Rabbi brings many times. But based on this chiddush, we understand pshat, why the Rambam said that tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh are two mitzvahs. Veda the shaila by shoftim is shoftim. Shoftim is shoftim. It should have been two mitzvahs. Number one, it's two separate gedorim. This is a shofet. He sits in his chair with shoftim, and he tells you what to do. Then you need a sheiter. The sheiter is mevatseya the psak din. It's two different mitzvahs. It's like tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh. Also, you could have one without the other. Just like by tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh, besides being two separate yonim, you could have them without another. If you don't have a hand, Rahman al-Tzai, you put tefillin on your head. So it's two separate mitzvahs. Now, if there's no shoitrim, you could just have shoftim. So you do that part of the mitzvah. But if you do and also if there's no shoftim, you could make shoitrim. What will be their job? Their job will be to enforce Yidden to do the mitzvahs hamifuroshois b'Torah. So if you could have shoftim without shoitrim, and they're two different inyonim, So why would the Rambam and other poskim make it 2 mitzvahs? So the Rebbe says, Kotesichis Chelik Lamed Dalet, says the Rebbe, Shoitrim, the mitzvah is one mitzvah. The mitzvah is just to make shoftim. In order for the shoftims, Sakdin to be niskayim, then you need shoftim. But ilu yitzuya, that Yidden will listen to the shoftim, you don't need shoftim. Therefore, the mitzvah is only lemanoi shoftim. That's why it says when Mashiach will come. And you will not need shoftim because Yidden will listen. So that's why it says, V'ashiva shiftayich kivarishena. Pasuk in Yeshai. There won't be shoftim. Shoftim is just a prat to help the shoftim. Then it's not a separate mitzvah. Maybe you could say that even when there is no shoftim and you have shoftim to tell people what it says clearly in the Torah, so the shoftim might have babysitters for the shoftim. It's one mitzvah. Says the Rebbe, it's interesting, Das Kenim about Tesves brings here, it says in Pasuk Shoftim Meshetim Titenucha, it says, Vayehi David Oisa Mishpat Utzdaka L'chol Amoy, V'yoyev ben Sruya Alatzov. As the Das Kenim about Tesves, what does Yoyev ben Sruya, being the defense minister, have to do with David learning Torah and passing Shilas in the Sanhedrin? Zokte Das Kenim, David would make a din. And Yehuda was machriach, since he was a strong military man, he was machriach l'kayim mitzvah adin. So, since we don't need shoftim, shoftim is only a prat in shoftim, that's why the Rambam says the mitzvah is l'manei shoftim. Rebbe brings from the Shachal HaTeirah that what is shoftim? Shoftim is causing us to learn Torah. When you learn Torah, you know as ha'maisa sheyas. That's shoftim. It's connected with Shavuos. We have Kabbalah HaTeirah, and you didn't say Naisel and Ishma. That we accept upon ourselves to learn the Torah, to know what the Ratzon Elyon is. If you don't learn, you don't know. So the mitzvah of the man is shoftim. There's a whole shakla. If there's the mitzvah of minui shoftim b'zman hazeh, what exactly? Chiyuv is b'zman hazeh. But the idea that a person has to have shoftim, that's a chiyuv b'zman hazeh, to learn Torah. The Rebbe made the biggest shturim of knowing halacha l'maisa, knowing halacha nerechayim, knowing halacha what you're allowed to do as a maisa sheyasu. That's the mitzvah of shoftim. Then there's the mitzvah of shoftim. Mitzvah of shoftim is when there's a mitzias that the nefesh abahamis is not interested in what the shoftim has to say. You need a shoter. What's the shoter, says the Rebbe? Like it says in Tanya, lahargiz hayetzer tev ala yetzer hora, to beat up the yetzer hora, to tell him, you're stopping my connection with the Eibishter, with the infinite. So the Eibishter help him that this Yom Tov Shavuos, we take upon ourselves to learn Halacha L'Maisa, to know a Maisa Sheyas, and whether it's Halacha Nerechayim or Shemishpat, it's allowed to do what we have to do. And through this, we'll be Zoicha to V'Hashiva Shiftaich Kivarishena, when there'll be all the Yehudim of Mashiach, and until the ultimate Yud, where we won't need Shoftim, it will be, Torah Mitzvos will be like a natural thing, but until then we do what we can to be Memanes Shoftim. A Freilichen Shavuos.